Hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. Today we're talking about Swamp Thing. It's Fancast Friday, and as tradition dictates, we're going to be fan casting a DC project. And so the next one on deck is, of course, Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is a movie that James Gunn announced alongside the rest of the slate for part one of chapter one of the DCU, called, but also known as the Gods and Monsters chapter. So Swamp Thing is a project that, or as a character, I should say, that has been done many times before. Like we have gotten movies before, we've gotten TV shows. As recently as I believe like 2019, we had a TV show, and it didn't last very long and got canceled under dubious circumstances. But James Gunn is excited to bring forth a Swamp Thing movie theatrically for the first time in a couple of decades. And it looks like, with somebody like a James Mangold coming on board the project, he's gonna have the talent, to back it up. And James Mangold, of course, most known for probably Logan, but of course he worked on the most recent Indiana Jones movie, which that probably felt more like a Disney movie than a James Mangold movie, like kind of like the Wolverine, where it seemed like they let him do his thing up until a certain point, and the studio took over. But it looks like, but hopefully James Gunn will, let James Mangold do his thing. But right now we're here to talk about, the actors who might get cast in the roles in that film. So to do that and so much more, as always with me, I've got John. How
Yep.
are you doing today?
Great. I love me some Swamp Thing. I know. I think this was a perfect time for James Gunn to announce a Swamp Thing movie because Marvel, after the popularity of Werewolf by Night, they are doing Man Thing. So it makes sense that the DC original would be doing their own thing. So that makes sense. So unlike the Authority and Brave and the Bold and Supergirl, we don't really know. Like just like all those, we don't know. But like there isn't like a total concrete like. Obviously, Batman is going to show up, and James Gunn confirmed Damian Wayne, so we know that. The Authority, well, there's only one Authority mainly. The OG is probably the one they're going to go with, so obviously talk about that. We've cast Supergirl. So Swamp Thing is kind of the weirder one, but there are some usual suspects that are probably going to appear. So we're going to be talking about those. Uh, so Swamp Thing, quick rundown if you don't know the character. He was a scientist, Dr. Alec Holland, sorry, and due to he gets killed in a swamp, and he is reincarnated kind of as this personification of what mystical plant side of the DC called the Green. They use him as an avatar, and they and he there's a whole thing on whether he is or isn't Alec Holland, or he just kind of uses his consciousness to like exist. It's a whole thing. I think Alan Moore, like originally he was just a guy who became a swamp monster, and then Alan Moore did some weird kooky shit with it, and then got a whole nother mess of like rules and thing. And the thing is, it can get kind of complicated sometimes, but it definitely like it brings in like intriguing character stuff like am I a man, am I not, like bringing in those darker themes of the character. So and like and then it brings I and it's been described as a neo-gothic movie, which could definitely be really cool, like gothic, not neo-gothic, sorry, gothic Lovecraftian sort of horror tale. Now James Mangold has not done horror, I believe, yet, but he's done like so many other genres. Like he did neo western. He with Logan, he did darker character driven action drama like the Wolverine. He's done biopic musical drama with Walk the Line. He's done romance with Kate and Leopold. He's done adventure with Dial of Destiny. So he's a jack of all trades. He can do a lot. So I'm sure he can do horror just as well. Just there is a little bit of a love hate thing I have personally with him because yeah, he's done Logan, he's done Wolverine, so he has the prowess. But he did just do Dial of Destiny, and he's prone to throw bitch fits on Twitter. So and he seems kind of like a Disney shill right now a little bit. So,
I
you
mean,
know,
wherever
and
you can get your paycheck, like, right?
I
Like,
guess so. And
and as a
there is
filmmaker, he
some
seems to thrive on, like, different genres. It doesn't matter what
yes,
he's like a Steven Spielberg in that sense. He doesn't
yeah.
stick to one genre. He likes to he does have a style of storytelling that seems to translate across genres.
Sure, and there was the whole mess with, like, allegedly, taking the idea that David S. Goyer wanted to do for a Star Wars movie and, kinda, being like, "Hey, I have this really interesting idea." Kathleen Kennedy says no, but she gives it to James Mangold with Dawn of the Jedi, so, that's a whole 'nother mess that's grains of salt everywhere, so who knows if that's true or not. David S. Goyer claims it is, so who knows? But we're not here to talk about that. So this is you have great intriguing ideas. It's been done so many times, so there is precedent with like greatness. You have like the first film by Wes Craven is a cult classic. The show is the recent show, the 2019 show was excellent, but due to tax rebates and WB being morons, they, had to pull the plug. And, the sequel, Return of the Swamp Thing, and the original show, good cheesy fun, like all that good stuff. So, Swamp Thing has a lot of precedent. So let's see what this will be in the pantheon of Swamp Thing adaptations, which you don't think you would say, but we have. So interestingly enough, but hey, no beating around the bush. Let's get it right into it. So obviously, I assume this is going to be an origin story. So we are most likely going to get Alec Holland, somebody. We're gonna get him like, oh, actually him being killed, all that. So the first one I have is a little bit weirder, as he's in contender for a Marvel project, and people wanted him for a while. I don't really see it, but I think he would be good for here. He could have a bit part, leave, go do Marvel, and then boom, perfect. Or the reverse. And the first one I have is Daniel Radcliffe as Alec Holland. Now, I know he's probably too big of a name. He played the greatest artist of our time already. So, he I know that nothing will achieve that greatness. I know that. But
I
he
mean,
he can do this.
yeah.
I think, like, as long as you get a guy who's, like, kinda weird, kinda nerdy, um, maybe possibly white and nerdy. Sorry, I had to. But he kinda has, like, the, nerdy outcast kinda vibe, which Alec Holland can have. I feel like there's a lot of different ways you can play Alec Holland. Like, you could play him as, like, the weird reserved type, you could play him as, like, just sort of like a erratic genius like guy who's just like who can't make relationships with people type of thing, or he can just be a charismatic kind of just dude who loves his job who just gets into this unfortunate. He can do a lot of different ways you could do that, and I think Daniel Radcliffe definitely has the prowess. He definitely has the acting talent. He can play
Yeah.
weird and nerdy, he can play charismatic lead, he can play
Yes.
and everything in between. Like the man and the guy's just like so nice. Like, I feel like he could just play like the nice guy with a twinkle in his eye sort of thing that, like,
Yeah.
Abby
Yeah.
Arcane, and we'll get to her soon, that she
Yeah.
kind of just, loves that about him and, falls in love with that aspect that can be carried
Yeah.
over into Swamp Thing. And the thing is with this, it's not like a big project, so he doesn't have to like stay on with maybe like if a sequel happens, maybe a flashback sequence, but that's kind of it. He can kind of show up for maybe 20 minutes and then kind of fuck out of there and do whatever weird other projects he likes to do. So, I
Yeah.
think
I
he could
mean,
do it. Like,
yeah.
I think he would be great for
Yeah.
that.
By the way, I see what you
Um,
did there with the weird other projects, because
yeah. Um,
he
what?
was in the weird.
Yeah.
I'm like
Well, I
from
mean, he
Harry.
already did that, so now he's doing other
Yes,
weird
no,
projects. But yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um,
like from Harry Potter to Miracle Workers to the weird, to weird the Al
the man
Yankovic
has a
story, and
fucking resume. He
it's
could have
it's
just
every.
fucking retired, but he didn't. Now he's just having fun. So,
Yeah, I
fuck
mean,
it.
and the way you describe like what you want from Alec Holland as a character, I'm like looking at him like, yeah, Harry Potter. Did that in Harry Potter. Oh yeah, he did that in Harry Potter. Oh yeah, he did that in the weird Al Yankovic story. Definitely did a ton of that in Miracle Workers, which I think is. I think Miracle Workers might still be airing when we were doing this. So, um,
Probably.
yeah,
That
I
show
mean,
can't.
he's got the talent, he's got the name. and the star power, because I do believe this is one of those projects where, look, DC so far, under James Gunn's tutelage, they're picking out some talented individuals, but they're also going for the stars. And I
Mhm.
think for a franchise like Swamp Thing that has had a lot of false beginnings and premature endings and stuff like that, and then just some wrong turns along the way, having somebody like I think maybe a bit more highly of James Mangold than maybe you do, but like I think having somebody like
I think he's
James Mangold,
talented, but
who's
I'm just
still,
rough
I'm
recently.
just saying,
Like,
on his best day, James Mangold is still one of the best directors in the game. And then when you add one of the best actors in the game right now, and Daniel Radcliffe, I think that would be a great combination.
oh
And
yeah,
and the
definitely.
best thing you can do for any project is bring on talent. Like, they'll come up with something, I'm sure, that is worth watching. And that excites me. Like, and it's not, and I think they can come up with a version of Swamp Thing where you can really, like you said, that twinkle in his eye, you can really feel for. It's
Yeah,
almost like, because really at its
sympathetically feel.
core, exactly, like, because at its core, Swamp Thing is in many ways, it's kind of like that old fable of, like, Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah,
Whether you're prescribed to the Disney version or the original fable, but like it very much is it's harkens back to that cliche or motif. And I think that, while Daniel Radcliffe hasn't played that much, there's a lot of aspects to the characters that he has played which line up well with this character. And in that sense, I think, like, I'm gonna pitch one of mine here, and quickly. It would be like Dan Stevens. He was in the live action Disney Beauty and the Beast, and I think he
it
could. I'm
more Dan Stevens is always a good thing.
More Dan Stevens is
You don't
always a
have
good thing. It's
to convince me of that.
Yeah, but you have another pick for this. So, like, what do you have in mind for another Alec
Oh
Holland?
yeah, again, guy who does nerdy scientist really well. Fucking get Rahul Kohli in there. My guy, he has shown, time and time again, how talented he is. When I saw him on iZombie, he became one of my favorite. That character, Dr. Chakrabarti. He was. I love that character. He was the best part of the show. Honestly, he was he was just so like I don't know, just something about him was just like perfect. And like I'm like, you're like, I love this guy. And during that show, during iZombie, he does eventually become a zombie. So he definitely has that guy of like transitioned from nerdy scientist into supernatural creature. Yes, zombie is very different from Avatar of the Green, but he has that in his and the fact that now he's a Mike Flanagan regular, which is fucking awesome. Because love it, like I love how he went from CW guy, and stuff like Supergirl and iZombie. Don't get me wrong, iZombie is not on the same level as Supergirl. Don't iZombie's actually fucking great, and he was great in it, and he's great in everything. And then he became a regular of one of the most talented horror directors, period, is like I, I felt like a proud dad. Like, man, you made that transition. Good for that fucking guy because he is so talented and he deserves it. And you know what? He has the acting ability, he has the prowess, and he nailed. Like, I know it's a little bit like too much like that character. Like he's done that character for weird nerdy scientist. But again, as I said when mentioning Daniel Radcliffe, you could can play the part completely differently. You could play it. You could play weird nerdy scientist, but you could also be like a charismatic guy who loves a job, or like sort of just like weird outcast. You could do a lot of things with this character. You could do all three. You could do none three. You could play, however, because Alec Holland doesn't really have a ton to him because it's mainly Swamp Thing. It's not like it's not like he can turn into Swamp Thing and then turn. It's not like the original Thor comics, or it was Donald Blake gets the power of Thor, becomes Thor, and then he goes back to a guy with a walking stick. No, it's not like that at all. It's like once Alec Holland Swamp Thing, you don't see Alec Holland anymore. So, and the thing is, you could I he doesn't have enough star power as Daniel Radcliffe, but he has the talent and he's played similar characters in the past and he's absurdly talented and I love him to pieces. And he called my face gross on a Q&A, which was the best day of my life. So I don't care. I just
Wait,
want to
I
see
wanna
him.
hear that story. What happened there?
So so diverging a little bit. So, but way back when, back on like the iZombie like Facebook page, they were doing a Q&A, and he was doing a Q&A. and somebody asked him, oh, like just like trivial questions, like what's your favorite like pizza flavor? And he's like, oh, I love pineapple on pizza. And I will say, everyone has flaws. We all have flaws, and that's his. Like, again, love the man, but nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
So I was like, and I was trying to like get his, like I'm a fan, like, and I love the guy, and I want to, yeah, I'm like weird obsessed fan, so I kept trying to ask him questions, and then of course the one thing I say gets his attention that I didn't want him to get his attention. I'm like, pineapple on pizza's fucking gross, and he's like, yeah, well, so is your face, John. And so I'm like, really? Out of all the things I said, he out of all the things I said, that's the one thing you noticed. But you know what? It was still the highlight of my life. I don't care. Love the guy. He's brilliant. And he's no stranger to comic book adaptations. He was in iZombie. He was also the voice of Scarecrow in Harley Quinn. So give this man more projects. He needs more projects because I know Mike Flanagan is giving him those projects, and I love him for that. But he needs even more. Give him more. Give him Swamp Thing. I don't care if he's on screen for only 5 minutes. I want him in more. I want him in everything, and he needs to be in everything. So Rahul Kohli as Alec Holland, I think I could definitely see that. He would do it flawlessly. But
Yeah.
yeah,
He's
so
got the charisma, he's got the
oh
look,
yeah.
I
Man
think he can do it.
drips charisma. He is one charismatic motherfucker. So I am here for it. I know we had the Renaissance with Brendan Fraser. Now we need the Coley Renaissance, the Renaissance. That didn't
A
work, but it's
Coley
fine.
sauce? I don't know. Okay, alright, we'll
Um, but yeah, so obviously, Alec Holland will probably appear in there for only a little bit, but enough time. And then, obviously, you got to have Abby Arcane in there. Abby Arcane has got to like she is like the beauty of his beast, as you mentioned. So I think someone who could do the role really well, someone like Lily James. I think Lily James definitely has that sort of um again, acting ability, she has the range for everything, but what I'm more so referencing specifically is her character Deb from Baby Driver. If you essentially do that character, that's pretty much Abby Arcane because Abby Arcane is one of those characters that's like she is like an extremely caring individual who she's like kind of like a she's just like an empathetic character, and she has like senses like she's I think they also kind of like literally she's an empath, I think. I don't know a ton about Abby Arcane. I just more so know about Swamp Thing, but Abby Arcane is just definitely one of those characters that I think you can really get right, that needs to really get right because I feel like with like female characters, like you got to they got to be independent, strong women, and that's great as long as they're written well. Um, but I feel like there's something also powerful about just having this love for a lot of people. That's what James Gunn is trying to bring with Superman. Because so many times we've seen this character, it's like, oh, he's got to be evil Superman. He's got to be dictator Superman. He's got to be communist Superman. He's got to be the bad, big, bad, evil Superman. It's like, no, we just want to see the hopeful guy from Kansas, doing his thing and caring about everybody. And that's awesome. So, and I feel like that's kind of what Abby is a little bit. Like she's just this person who just like cares about a lot of people, who's dealt with a lot of pain in her life. Like she dealt with nightmares, dealt with like a abusive childhood, that kind of thing. And then she still came out to still like extremely care about everyone. I think Lily James can nail that sort of like not a broken character, but like sort of like a little bit of that like darker, like sort of darkness behind the eyes, but the eyes still twinkle sort of thing. Where she's just like, I don't want the things that happen to me happen to anybody else. So I'm gonna make sure that like that my kindness knows no bounds, and how she falls in love with Swamp Thing and all of that. And that even though it's like weird species sort of thing, it's like she doesn't care. Like she falls in love with this guy and she wants, the best for people around her. And I think Lily James could really uh leaking my next pick. Don't worry, Lily James, I think, could do that. She has the range. She's lovely. But I also think Saoirse Ronan could also do it really well because when I was looking through people who could do this character. I saw like mostly actresses that were more so like didn't have like that sort of like twinkle. Lily James could definitely do it. I think Saoirse Ronan could also do it. She um she definitely has played more darker characters, I think more so than Lily James, but still think she kind of has like that like sort of kind face
Yeah,
like a
no,
lot of
she can, yeah. I mean,
absolutely. I
like,
think
she has a sense
Brooklyn.
of innocence, like,
Yeah.
See How They Run, I think, was a good example where she was
Yeah.
playing somebody who knew what was going on. She was clearly playing a very intelligent character, somebody who's stepping into this, investigation as without a lot of experience, and it has, like, a mentor figure in her, but, like, ultimately, as the story progresses, you find out that she does a lot of the heavy lifting, and you could see that she still has a sense of innocence, but she, at the same time, is very much driving the plot forward, and her character development is really dynamic. So, I think she played that role really, really well, and that could,
Mhm.
that I think that she has those qualities that you're looking for in the
Yeah.
character. And Abby Arcane, again, it's the archetype of, King Kong and Beauty and the Beast, like, that's what Swamp Thing is. And
Yeah.
I think, like, even if you wouldn't, I think while Lily James you might say, "Okay, she's definitely kinda slots in much more naturally into that role of Abby Arcane." I think Saoirse Ronan has the
Yeah.
range, and I would
Definitely.
trust, her talent to be able to kinda pull that off,
Absolutely.
like, seamlessly.
She is a little bit younger than actors I have of Alec Holland, but once they become Swamp Thing, that almost doesn't matter. So I think she could. I mean, obviously both of them. I mean, Brooklyn was another example of someone who's like kind of has that like sort of like kindness and like caring about people type of thing. Because I think that's like important to Abby's character. Like, and the thing is, the way she cares about people, it's like, and she doesn't view that as a weakness, sort of thing. Like, that's not a weakness to her, and I think that also you gotta have that as well. Because I know, like, in this day and age, kindness can be seen as taken advantage of, seen as a weakness, but, like, she doesn't view that in weakness, and she can, like, she's still incredibly intelligent, she can, run circles around people, and she, has, like, some sort of supernatural power a little bit. Because she's an empath, she has telekinesis, she has telepathy, so she has, like, knows about people's feelings and all that. So most definitely, I think Lily James and Saoirse Ronan could be great as Abby Arcane. Now we get to the main guy, the guy that's on the poster, so the guy that's the name of the movie, Swamp Things. But like, how he's a big green monster guy? Well, considering what I know about James Mangold with superhero projects, he is all about creative ingenuity and practical effects. And with James Gunn, well, yes, James Gunn is more known for like heavy CGI stuff, mainly with Guardians, but you kind of have to because cosmic space, all that. So I can see them going either way with WB. Again, I don't totally trust WB, so they would probably I could see them doing CGI because um we have that whole thing like against practical because I know Eben Moss Bachrock was like, oh fucking, practical effects looks amateurish, even though practical effects still age like fine wine. If you look at practical effects of the 80s and CG, like look at like Spawn versus John Carpenter's The Thing. Tell me which one looks better. Um, so you know, I could see them doing practical. I'm gonna cast actors for practicalness. And first guy I have is Tyler Main. He's more known for he played Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie films, as well as playing, big gruff guys who can you know, like big gruff tough guys. And he's not he kind of is stunt double, but kind of not. But I feel like he has a good enough acting ability that he
Yeah.
can, if they do a practical again, which is what I'm aiming for with these picks. Again, Sabretooth, he has the superhero, connection. Um, so I think he could deliver a good performance. I know it's prosthetics and it's hard to, showcase that, but I still think he could do that very well. And he's a big hulking guy, so like I think that he could definitely, work for that. Simple big hulking guy who could have like good body mannerisms. Because yeah, those Rob Zombie Halloween movies aren't that great, but he was a good Michael Myers. So um, keeping with the Michael Myers train a bit. Again, I'm thinking of big, tough guys who are into like stunt doubles, uh, who are big stunt doubles kind of thing. But James Jude Courtney is another one. So he is again, big hulking dude that can do like really gruff stuff. Now he hasn't done a lot of prosthetics. Now Tyler Mane has done a good amount of. I know Sabretooth isn't exactly Swamp Thing, but James Jude Courtney, I don't know if he's done a ton of prosthetics, but again, he's like a big towering dude who's done this big, huge fucking franchise. He has the franchise thing. He's a big hulking mass of like, you know, everything. And, I feel like he can like work through prosthetics and that kind of thing. So again, I know Swamp Thing is kind of simpler. You just need to get a big guy who can like kind of sort of act. That's pretty much the main thing with what I was going for. And
Oh yeah,
I'm a big horror guy. So and get a
yeah.
horror actor for a horror movie. So
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately, like the thing is, you might say, "Oh yeah, the guy behind the mask playing, Mike Myers," or even like the I'm forgetting the name of the actor who for the longest time I think he passed, or maybe the voice. No, no, no. I think the actor used to in the original Star Wars trilogy like dress up as Darth Vader. I'm like, you may think that there's not a lot going on there, but like
yeah,
when you have to kind of communicate everything through your physical body language,
yes,
there's an art to
absolutely.
that, and I think as an actor, like that's something that not everybody can pull off. I
Yeah.
mean, good
David
actors can do it
Prowse
all,
is
but
his name, David Prowse.
yes, exactly. So I think like that's yeah, you definitely want to have that.
And yeah, so and fun fact about David Prowse, he was the bodybuilding mentor for Christopher Reeve when he had to build muscle for Superman. So fun fact there. But also I would like before we end this, I would like a quick mention of I was one who loved the show, and due to WB stupidity, we couldn't get a second season, even though we had a lot of, promise for that and ended on a cliffhanger, all that. I wouldn't mind if all three of those guys came back for these roles. I wouldn't mind if Andy Bean, Crystal Reed, or Derek Mears would come back to the roles. Now, Derek Mears would probably be the most likely because, again, he's a big stunt guy, done a lot of horror stuff, and you could just hide. Again, nobody would recognize him. He's a big guy in a prosthetic suit, so obviously, just do the prosthetics again, and he's just that's just a normal thing. So just get the guy again. He's done it. The suit looked fucking amazing. Like, look at that. Look at that beautiful fucking prosthetic suit right there. Perfect. Just get him again because he's done it and he expects it, and his body can withstand it, and he's done all sorts of stuff like this, and fucking Jason Voorhees. Don't fuck with Jason Voorhees, man. So I think out of all those three actors, Derek Mears would obviously be the one where you could probably get back, and like if you're doing a prosthetic suit, he could probably do it. But I wouldn't mind seeing Andy Bean and Crystal Reed, although Crystal Reed gave a very different kind of Abby Arcane. But I think all of them could be awesome if they came back, even though it's unlikely. But that's my wish fulfillment. But yeah, I also wanted a quick mention of some supporting characters that I think could possibly come in. Um, I think now there isn't a ton because well, there is a good amount, but like like there's other scientists and stuff like I know Matt Cable is probably a likely one. I know that there's like other like, other guys like Harry Kay and Chester Williams are also kind of smaller Swamp Thing supporting characters. They'll probably be thrown in there as well. But I think Matt Cable would probably be the most likely. I could see Chester Williams um as well. I could also see like if you're wanting to like build the world a bit, get Poison Ivy in there because I believe recently they did connect her to the green. I think it would make sense
It would make yeah,
since she, controls
yep.
plant life. That wouldn't shock me. So I can see like only as like a cameo, maybe like a post credit scene, like you're part of a bigger universe, Swamp Thing, that kind of shit. So I could see that. I could see them doing that. But Matt Cable, Chester Williams, Harry Kay, I
Yeah.
could see them as supporting characters. But for the villain, I'm really curious what they're gonna go with here. The most likely choice would be Anton Arcane, but he's been in the villain a lot.
Okay.
Even Sunderland from the series was essentially Anton Arcane and Sunderland, General Sunderland, which is a totally different character combined. So, I could see them, you know, trying to avoid that, maybe doing something a little bit more mystical, like Blackbriar Thorn, since he controls the elements. They can connect him to like all sources of like mystical DC stuff. So I think doing that. I would also
I mean,
love to see
maybe
Philosophic
even
Man.
more of an internalized conflict, right? Like, maybe
Yeah,
it's more of that it is the Beauty and the Beast kind of a situation where it's not
maybe.
just a
Yeah.
singular villain, maybe it's just
Oh
everybody's
yeah,
kind
of
of coming
course.
after
They
him, and
could do
he's like a
that. Like,
misunderstood character.
but I would also like to see him punching another plant guy like Floronic Man. I think that would be fun too. Um
Yeah.
And
Of
also,
course.
another, like, bringing in more internal conflict, Abby Arcane's brother, William Arcane, is also, you could bring him in there because he is the avatar of the rot. Because there's also, like, there's different, like, mystical elements of DC in terms of, like, different forms of, like, life and not life. Like, as I said, Swamp Thing is the control of the green, which is plant life. Then you have the red, which is animal life. Vixen and Animal Man, I believe, tap into that. And then you have the rot, which you can probably guess from the, title. Is a guy that controls like dead matter and like kills like any sort of life. And William Arcane was the avatar for that. I think that could be really good, like bringing in themes of life and death, like literally personifying plant life and then killing of plant life, death life. So, like, I think that could be a really cool conflict. So
That life
having,
is such an oxymoron, though, what you
yeah,
just said.
not, I didn't mean death life. I meant like the death of life.
It's
That's what
good
I
though.
meant.
Yeah.
But like death and then plant life death like
The
that.
red, yes.
I think that could be really cool. And then have him maybe working with Anton Arcane, his uncle. So I think all of that could be really cool, like really cool villain ideas. Maybe they again, you don't even have a villain. It's just Alec Holland dealing with being Swamp Thing, or however they plan to do it. I think it would be really awesome. Um, I'm really looking forward to this. I do have a couple, you know, little tidbits that I'm like, I wish that could be better. Like James Mangold, why'd you have to make Indiana Jones 5? But hey, uh, but I think, but yeah, that's kind of it because we can like question and obviously Alec Holland, Swamp Thing, of course, and Abby Arcane are going to be in there. They're all going to be in there because they're in every adaptation. Even Adrienne Barbeau, she was not Abby Arcane, but she was a really Abby Arcane. She was like a combination of various characters. So it works. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think all my choices explain for themselves, but I don't really know
Yeah.
what else to say. But that's it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, overall, Swamp Thing is a fantastic character. It's the type of character that I think it's been hard to adapt that to live action in a way that works for the mainstream audience. And like, the movie from the 80s, like the movies from the 80s, there were some of the, the first ones are called classic Wes Craven film, but then it sort of kind of, starts to go downhill. And then of course the 2019 TV show we all know like had a couple of good things going for it, but ultimately it just never quite made it too far. I mean, weirdest reasons ever in terms of why they canceled it. What I think is missing here is a real understanding for what drives this character, and I think ultimately they really need to just, in my opinion, lean into the whole Beauty and the Beast kinda aspect of
Oh
that
yeah,
archetype,
I think it'd be
and maybe
great.
then kinda, like, add a twist on it. And that's how you make it unique, and of course, there's plenty of comic book, lore to pick from, as you mentioned, so I'd be excited to see it. I mean, certainly this is one of those projects, this we talk about, the whole slate of DC projects, and this is one of those that is confirmed. This isn't something we're speculating. This is coming down the road. It's and how soon we get it, that's the only question. It's not a matter of if,
Hmm.
it's a matter of when. And alongside, Moment of Tomorrow, the Supergirl movie, The Authority, Superman Legacy, Batman Brave and the Bold, this is that, fifth live action movie that they announced at that, announcement, Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, Part 1 of Chapter 1. Gods and Monsters back in late 2022 when James Gunn first took over. And I'd like to imagine that James Mangold, who's currently working on a couple of other things, I believe, but he's going to switch focus hopefully to Swamp Thing sooner than later, because it's the kind of project that I think can really open the doors to DC doing more horror within the DCU. Even though we have talked about it, like, I think the horror genre is one that is underserved within the superhero
Yeah,
sphere of
and there's a lot of
movies.
potential there.
Yeah, and like James Wan certainly explored it with both the Aquaman movies that he worked on. I really still wish we could get the Trench kind of a spin-off somehow, some way. And I think with the pedigree that DC and New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers have with horror, Swamp Thing would be right up their alley. And of course, even James Gunn has a bit of a pedigree with horror. So I think there's a lot of good talented minds already at it, and hopefully adding the actors, whether it's Lily James, Saoirse Ronan, Raoul Coley, Daniel Radcliffe, and even when you put them in the suit, Tyler Mane, James Jude Courtney, those are all incredibly talented people at what they do. They have played some iconic roles. They will bring a lot of star power to the table. And when you add James Mangold's name as a director, regardless of what you think about him as a person, his
Definitely.
resume
Yeah.
speaks for itself. And ultimately, I think you would have a situation where, again, they will have package this movie so that the only way it cannot succeed is if somehow all those talented people don't mesh well enough to create something great. And I think James Gunn, this is where him, Peter Safran as a producer, this is where they will shine through, because they will be putting all these pieces together. Then it's just, and then they have to kind of shepherd it all the way to completion. And Swamp Thing is a movie that I'm thoroughly looking forward to seeing whenever it comes out, because I think that the 2019 show was pretty darn good, and there's parts of those older movies that were certainly iconic even to this day. So um, let's just see what the modern day adaptation, certainly within the context of a larger shared cinematic universe, looks like, especially when you can like bring in a character like Poison Ivy and other aspects of the DC universe. That is something that Swamp Thing has never experienced before. So I would love to see that happen. But
100%.
yeah, guys, yeah, let us know in the comments what you think. Like and subscribe, of course, as always. We appreciate that. If you like the content, hit the like button. If you don't like it, you can hit the dislike button. We appreciate the interaction either way. Leave a comment with what you think about Swamp Thing the movie. Who would you cast in that film for the roles of Alec Holland or for Abby Arcane? Who would you want in the suit for the actual, when you see Swamp Thing on screen? Because I really would love to see them do it practically, or as much
Yes,
practically
definitely.
as they possibly can. So yeah, and of course we are here on on DCU Daily, as it says in the name, daily, Monday through Friday. We are here talking about all the new stories, breaking news. Superman Legacy going into production soon. You've got Creature Commandos coming on out soon later this year. The Penguin TV show is on its way. Anytime we get an update from the Batman Part 2, we'll be sure to share that and talk about it. Joker Folie à Deux, we're getting lots of behind the scenes images. We might be getting a trailer soon. Who knows? Of course, DC going to the Comic Con this year. Hopefully, we'll be covering that as well. So keep checking back here for more DC related content. And of course, Fancast Fridays are always fun, because we get to play casting director for a day, and it's always fun looking at all the options out there, and just kind of wonder what it would be like to put a few of these pieces together and come up with a nice end result, which is whether it's a movie or TV show. I think it's talking DC is always fun. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this, and of course check back here next week when we return to DCU Daily, Monday through Friday, as I mentioned. John, as always, it's been a pleasure. Go out there, watch something DC related, come back here, talk to us about it. We'd love to talk about that with you. And until next time, guys, it's all about DC, and we'll be back here on the next episode of DCU Daily.